Okay. Again, I'll come back to Safaricom because this is a huge part of your story, and I'm loving to hear the influence that you had to do a few things here and there. M-Pesa, the M-Pesa story.
So that was interesting. So when M-Pesa was first shared to us, or shared to me, Michael's like, okay, we're going to need to get approvals. He had already spoken to Honorable Michuki about the idea, and there was definitely going to have to be some legislation around this. But it was going to take a while and we didn't have time. So what we decided to do was, you know what, we'll just do it. We'll seek forgiveness later. So we got Mutahi Kagwe, who was the Minister for Information at that time, and Kimunya, who was the Minister for Finance, to come and launch it. And I mean, once the government's launched it, we'll figure out how to put the rules around it later. So that was a really exciting time. And we were able to show both the ministers how to M-Pesa people in their, in their homes. And we'd arranged all that ahead of time so that their guys had an M-Pesa account available. Absolutely. And I think we did it and decided to ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission, because the process of asking for permission from government to do it was going to be too complicated. Okay. So just agreed to go ahead and launch it.
Do you remember the famous story with John Michuki? Do you remember that story? Okay, so when we were successful with M-Pesa, in about 2008, it was obviously starting to take, and the banks were starting to get really worried.
Oh, that's right.
And the banks got really worried, and they formed a subcommittee of the banks to try to stop M-Pesa. And so they started to ask questions in Parliament. And one day they cornered Minister Michuki. I don't know if you remember John?
Yeah.
Really nice man.
Yeah, nice man.
Very special guy. They cornered him and they said, this M-Pesa thing, what do you think about it? And he didn't know anything about it. So he said, I will investigate it and it will not end well. And I saw it in the news the night before. And the next morning I went to his office, and he was one of those ministers that went to work early in the morning.
Really early, like 6 o'clock in the morning.
So I thought I would be there before him. I was there at 6:30 and he was already there. Yep. Anyway, he saw me and he said, come in. And we knew each other because he was my minister before.
That's right.
And anyway, and he said to me, Michael, what's this M-Pesa thing? Show me. And I explained to him how it worked, and then he still couldn't understand. So I sent money, it's a long story, so I don't want to take more time. I sent money from my phone to pay his foreman on his farm up in the Aberdares.
Yeah.
And he was amazed. He was absolutely flabbergasted that this worked. So he said, I'm going to talk to the old man being the president.
Yeah. And
he took it to President Kibaki, and Kibaki was just, he said, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I remember that.
He famously said, don't you worry, I'll take care of it. And 2 days later, there was in the full-page advert in all the dailies that said that the government, the Treasury, the National Treasury, and Central Bank had audited M-Pesa, and there was nothing wrong with it. And that was the end of the bank. That was John Michuki.
It was very cool, and I mean, seeing how M-Pesa's gone on to become part of everyday life for Kenyans, and it also brought me back to my days of, when we were worried about the unbanked. And now, and suddenly it's come full circle.
Such touch points with your story.
Yeah, so it's come full circle where everybody now has access to money on their phone. I mean, it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Did you think at the time after M-Pesa did you guys understand the magnitude of the innovation of M-Pesa?
I don't think anybody did. I don't think anybody realized that it would just become such a big part of the fabric of society. I don't think Michael did.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. And now that, Safaricom are going into Ethiopia, I mean, that for me was such a trigger when I read that, because I wanted to be there. I want to be, I want oh my God, I want to be part of that journey.
Yep.
Just the way, because I mean, you can never not be proud of brands that you've been part of the journey. I mean, there's not a time when I'm not proud of Safaricom. I'm just I feel it's so much part of me.
Yep.
I feel such ownership over their journey, that I want to be part of their story.
Was the first Safaricom the better option? Was that the first?
Yeah.
And are those things that you're involved in?
Yes, there was a better option. Then there was also the Michael, when he called Kenyans have peculiar calling habits,
Yep.
And then there was a time when Michael decided to because of the patience that customers had and the network kept going down, he decided one day to give everybody 100 shillings. And the system screwed it, and everybody got 400 shillings. And so, so there was a lot of, Michael, why the hell did you do this? So it was a very interactive relationship.
There's a memorable event that I gloss over it sometimes, but when people say, did you make some mistakes? There was one very big mistake I made, and probably I should have taken better advice. But what I did was, when we got some money, eventually, we got a bond offer, and then we were able to put a switch in, and we didn't have any more congestion. So I decided to reward Kenyans for their loyalty to us. So I secretly decided to add 100 shillings to everybody's account to reward them for their loyalty. You remember this occasion?
I remember it, because we had told you. You shared it, and we'd said, no, Michael, that's not a good idea.
That's not the right thing to do,
but
I went ahead and did it. But I did it in secret because I wanted to surprise everybody. So the advert only went in the next morning to say, thank you, Kenyans, for your Safaricom. Thank you, you got 100 shillings extra credit, or 200 shillings, no, 200
200, yeah.
200 shillings to spend. But I did it in secret, and I shouldn't have done it in secret. What actually happened was, at that time we had a very dodgy switch, and the guy was in Dubai who put 200 shillings onto everybody's account. But halfway through, or 1/3 of the way through through the process, the line dropped, because remember we still had satellite connections.
That's
and
right.
the line dropped. So he started again, but instead of starting from where he stopped, he started from the beginning again. So now people got 400 shillings credit. And then it happened again. It happened 4 times. And then suddenly in the middle of the night, somebody sitting in a bar somewhere dialed 141 and suddenly had 800 shillings worth of credit.
Yeah.
And he thought, the word spread, that if you dial 141, you get so much credit on your phone, because it just mysteriously appeared. So the word spread throughout Kenya overnight.
Very,
in the middle
very
of the
fast.
night. People were calling up in the middle of the night.
3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I remember John Ngumi telling me he got a call at 2 o'clock. Top up, dial 141, dial 1, you'll get credit. So they called me at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I rushed to the office and said, what's going on? We thought that there was lots of rain. I thought there was a flood somewhere, but it took us an hour to figure this out. So then when I figured this out, remember now we were a small company, just got a loan, just got financially stable, and then I decided to reverse it, because then I had 800,000 customers, 1.6 million customers. I had to reverse it. So then it started coming down.
And by 8 o'clock in the morning.
And then everybody realized that the money was coming down. So now people try to spend the money. The network was jammed for a whole 5 days.
Oh, it was awful. It was awful.
I made a mistake by not telling people in advance.
Yeah.
And I had to go on TV.
Yeah.
And then that's when I said you need a PR company, because then you're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
Now you need to go and explain what the hell you did. And you had to stand up front and say, look, I made a mistake. This is what I did. They didn't believe me, because the explanation sounded so way out there. But that was what happened.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember being really upset with you. Like, Michael, why didn't you share
But
this?
the other side of it, I don't want to take over your interview, but the other side of Gina and her advice to me was, one thing Safaricom for now is it's a very CSR-oriented company. We are involved in every part of Kenya, in everything people do. And the decision that we made at the time was, instead of doing the easy thing, was to cut a check for 200,000 shillings or 300,000 shillings and go to 5 children's homes, and preferably on a tar road, and then give the check, get your picture in the newspaper. We decided to do it with great difficulty. Of course, Gina also sort of upset, because we then cut hundreds of little checks, and we went and gave them away to all sorts of people across the country, opening up chicken houses, donating a cow. I even have a picture of me with a ribbon on a cow,
And the medical camps.
Medical camps, dormitories, even in Nanyuki, in the children's home in Nanyuki. So we did a lot of little things, which meant that Safaricom was everywhere.
Yeah. So now let's go back to the company. So Gina Din Corporate Communication is like, it's beginning to grow. I mean, you're
at a crazy rate.
How many clients are you handling?
Probably 35.
Whoa.
35 on retainer, then projects. I mean, we were doing work in, Uganda, we were doing work. We had an office in Tanzania.
So now you've started expanding.
Yeah.
In fact, let's talk about the expansion then out of the region, and then I think we can come to the KQ story, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. So we had an office in Tanzania, and we had one of our Kenyan staff. It's quite a challenging environment to work in Tanzania, especially for Kenyans.
Yep.
So we had an office there for a while. We did a lot of project work.
Was that the first country that you went to, Tanzania?
Yeah. But then we did a lot of project work. Tanzania was because we had regional businesses, that needed presence in these countries. But it was yeah, it was. We grew very, very quickly. I mean, I always go back to the story of when you first start out. You know, you're by yourself. You're like a, you know, you're like a hyena. You'll pick anything, you know, just to survive. You know, you're in the wilderness, so you pick any work because you just need to pay your bills.
Yeah,
you know,
got employees.
And then you grow a little bit, and you're like, you know, it's much more of a lifestyle. You know, it's affording you a nice lifestyle. You've got a few employees. You're growing, but it's comfortable. And then you make now your next step, which is when there's a lot of growth. And I call that, you know, like literally like being in the desert, because you are like, you know, you're on a long walk, a long journey ahead. And that was a long time for me, when you're just like, you're growing so fast that you actually don't even have time to come back. And, you know, you can't find water because you're in this very long journey.
And how do you stay? How do you stay sane? How do you not give up? Because I think there's a statistic that says SME businesses don't last 5 years.
Exactly. Well, I think after we'd gone past the 5 years, the 10 years, you know, we were a very established brand, and you know, I think there's a difference between repeat business and loyal business. We had a lot of loyalty. Ooh. You know, so the repeat business was okay just because there's nobody else that can do it, so we'll come to you. But then there was our loyal clients who loved us, even if we were more expensive, even if, you know, they would come back anyway because they were so loyal to us. And that's because we had walked journeys with them, like Safaricom. You know, there were things that weren't in my contract to do for. I mean, nobody asked us to send out bills, but you know, it had to be done. So what do? You do it. You know, and I think, you know, clients remember the little extra things you do for them, and they appreciate. So we have a lot of loyalty.
I get that. Clients. In fact, I want to know a bit more. What more do? How more do? What? Let me ask this question again. I'm trying to understand more about this loyalty conversation.
So I think it's more you know, as much value as you can add to your client, do it. I think that's the thing.
And I've seen you do that.
That's how you build your loyalty. I mean, you know, we were more expensive than many other agencies, but there was a loyalty. There was a loyalty of our clients because they knew that we had gone outside our call of duty. You know, we became, I think for us, you know, we never saw ourselves as consultants. You know, the minute we got a contract, we would become that person. You know, at Safaricom, we had Gina Din people sitting in Safaricom. They wouldn't even come to our offices. They would go there. Yeah. But even though they were our staff, so we became very much part of that business.
I get it.
You know, and I think that's the important thing. It also helps you to understand the challenges your clients are going through.
I get it.
You know, we would feel it. You know, if something happened. I mean, you know, for 12 years that I handled Safaricom, Michael and I would be on the phone to each other every morning at 6 o'clock.
Whoa.
You know, no matter where in the world any of us were, because we would have had to read the paper, decided we were going to respond to it. I mean, you know, it's a very, very close relationship.
I get it. And at this time, again, I always come back to this conversation because the PR sector is constantly evolving till today. So at this time, what kind of evolution is happening within the sector?
So, you know, you're getting to a point where digital is becoming more important. You know, you're starting to see blogs. It's an area that none of us know. So we're having to learn. We're having to teach our clients, who are also very nervous about this online thing. But okay, you know what? If you don't take the lead, if you're not telling your story, that somebody's going to be telling it for you. Can we just let's get with the program? So it was a lot of us teaching our clients about the evolution of PR. It wasn't just us evolving. It was us having to actually teach our clients how this whole PR thing that they just figured out that they learned was now changing yet again. You know, so it was really us leading and leading the way. And I think we did that, you know, for a lot of the continent.
Yep. Okay. In fact, I'll enter the continental conversation, but I think a huge important conversation to enter is the KQ story.
Yeah, so we were handling KQ,